Mahalo and welcome to a very happy episode of You'll Never Talk Alone, because the man we've been talking about repeatedly over the course of the past few episodes is finally back with us. Will Caves, how are you doing tonight?
It's good to be back. I know the quality of the podcast since I've been gone has been really low, so I'm here to bring some expertise and some quality to the podcast. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know we were recording it.
Oh, no, it's
I thought
been
that was
bad.
practice. Oh, okay.
No, it's been real bad. If there's anybody left listening, we'll be very lucky. And if you've gone away, read the liner notes. Will's back, everybody. I'm your temporary host, Alex Lovell, and we're here to talk about a big win. Liverpool 3, Arsenal 1. I don't think anybody predicted it. I know it wasn't me. I'm pretty sure it was Joseph who predicted this scoreline, but a pretty commanding victory, and one that really stamped our authority on this league. And with other results going our way as well, we're sitting pretty at the top of the table with 9 points. But let's just start let's just start with an overview of the match. Will, how did you interpret this match? What feelings were going through your mind, your heart, your gallbladder, all of it?
I love playing Arsenal, and I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean that it's usually a fun game, and we usually beat the crap out of them. And so those two things put together make me love playing Arsenal. I thought I was really surprised that they set up as defensively as they did initially. I thought that they would come at us a little harder. And, they did eventually. They tried to catch us on the break, and we saw a couple of dicey moments there. But I thought overall the game was pretty fun. Standard result. We beat the crap out of Arsenal every time we play them, it seems like, and this is no different. So I was very pleased with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they had a plan to maybe go at us a little bit with a more creative front three. I mean, they had Ceballos trying to feed Pepe and Aubameyang in behind. They seem to be very aware that we've been playing a little bit more of a high line, trying to ride that offside trap, and they seemed intent on beating it. But what it really turned into was 9v11, where Aubameyang and Pepe were all by themselves up front, and all of our players were attacking their goal. So, I mean, it was really fun. And Will, did anyone stand out in particular to you? I mean, obviously Mo got 2 goals. Is that your pick for man of the match, or was there someone else that really shined?
I thought that aside from when he lost the ball kind of in a bad spot, I thought Hendo played really good. Surprise! Will thought Hendo played good.
Who would have thought?
Right. Mo was really good. He's kind of, I don't know if he's conserving his energy or what, but he started doing this thing where it's almost like a messy thing, like where he doesn't make a ton of runs. He just kind of makes himself available. But when he gets the ball, he really turns on the jets. And as you saw with David Luiz, who is still spinning in circles on the Anfield pitch, he just makes a fool out of people. I thought probably man of the match, yeah, Mo. I actually thought Bobby played really well, and it's a shame that he didn't get a goal because I thought he probably deserved one. But also shout out to Matip. Joel Matip was excellent during this game, I thought.
He really was, and we'll touch on his form a little bit later. But yeah, I absolutely agree. It was a shame that little flip that Bobby had over Ceballos' head did not result in a goal. It was a very well-struck shot.
How dirty.
It was just ridiculous to do that in a match against someone who is trying to push for top 4. Like, just to pull that off is just absolutely unreal.
A move like that is a great way to either get punched in the face or have the person you did it to ask for a sub. Like, there's only 2 options there.
And I mean, he kind of probably should have asked for a sub, because there was that moment a little later in the game where we pressured him in the corner and he played just an inch perfect cross into his own box, and it nearly resulted in a goal for us. So Ceballos stood out against Burnley as being one of their players to watch, but we really absolutely just negated any positive impact that he could have had. And to your point about Mo, like he could be conserving energy. He could be exhausted from only having like a 20-minute preseason. So
Yeah, right. If
but
that.
he's turning into a super efficient player. But I mean, we started with a lot of pressure, but there were some times where I know we were a little frustrated in the first half. It seemed like we could have done a little bit more. We might be really harsh critics and we might just want the best for the team. But I mean, once the second half started, things really opened up. Do you think it was more something that we did or something that they did on their side that led to everything kind of unfolding very quickly, winning the penalty, Salah running past everybody?
I think they just kind of gave up. Like both of those were David Luiz, and which is like they bought him to be a new defensive anchor, and then you give up a really bad, like super bad penalty. Like that's Sunday league stuff, grabbing the jersey like that. How did in 2019 with VAR and everything else we've got going on, did you really think that would fly? Like I don't understand it. And then also, I mean, he claims because he was already on a card, he wasn't able to properly defend Salah, but you got turned inside out, dude. Just own up to it. It was kind of funny that both of most goals came from David Luiz, but I just think that Arsenal are not really a team equipped to sit back like that. It's even though they have Aubameyang and Pepe, who I want to talk about in a minute. They didn't play the personnel to do that properly. They don't really have the personnel to do that properly. And Arsenal are not Stoke. They can't sit back and defend for 90 minutes and not concede a goal. Not without Tony Pulis on their team, on their coaching staff. And so it's just not going to happen. And we're too good right now to not score a goal against opposition like that.
Yeah, it's really hard to sit back and defend and play really negatively when none of your defenders are any good. And some of your defenders aren't even defenders. Like Maitland-Niles is not a right back. Socrates is as old as ancient Greece, and he plays like it. David Luiz is hilariously bad. Yeah, like you said, there's no reason to believe that wasn't him trying to make an actual tackle because he's so bad. On the one where he said he was on a yellow and couldn't foul Mo. I mean, Monreal hasn't been solid for a while. And I mean, they threw Willock into this, and Willock's been playing well for the first two games, I guess. But this was a big test for him, and you've seen Anfield lead to the collapse of many more experienced players than just him. So I think you're absolutely right. They didn't really set up in a way that played to their strengths, to the point where it looked like they had no strengths at all. And I guess we can turn our attentions to the man you wanted to talk about, Nicolas Pepe, because this was the Nicolas Pepe derby. He could have been a Liverpool player. He's an Arsenal player. He was up against Virgil van Dijk. He ran very quickly. Aubameyang ran very quickly, but I mean, they didn't score. That's not where their goal came from. So do you think that kind of sends a message to the rest of the league that we might be pressing forward a lot, but you're not going to be able to counterattack against us because we have Virgil van Dijk and the flowing, beautiful gazelle that is Joel Matip back there?
I don't really know who. I'm trying to think of other teams other than City City's not going to sit back like that. But is there really another team that has the quick forwards with the same skill level as Arsenal has? I can't really think of. I mean, maybe Jamie Vardy, who could do that, but Leicester doesn't really. Braj doesn't play like that. Leicester's not going to sit back.
Well, the thing is, we've already played Timu Pukki,
right?
And we're playing Ashley Barnes this weekend.
Right.
Those are the only two forwards that are worth anything. So, I mean, we're getting those tests out of the way early.
Is that a fantasy league hot take?
Yes, it is.
So, yeah, Nicolas Pepe looked every bit the type of player that you would spend $80 million on, or 80 million pounds, whatever it was. He is strong. He's super fast. He looks really confident on the ball. And most forwards nowadays avoid Van Dijk like the plague, and they try to go after Matip or Gomez or Trent or Robertson, and they don't find much joy, but they usually tend to avoid Van Dijk. But Pepe said, no, let's do this. And actually, I believe broke the stat that Van Dijk had not been dribbled past in about 10 years. He broke that in this game.
Since he was born.
Right, since since before Pepe was born, Van Dijk has not been dribbled past. The other play, honestly, Pepe was great. He had a couple of good looks, and he just, you could tell he didn't expect to get past Van Dijk in that play, because he crapped his pants as soon as he had a look at goal,
Yeah.
and Robertson was able to mop it up. I believe it was Robertson. But I think Pepe is going to be a force to be reckoned with, especially against some of the teams that will actually open up and play against Arsenal. I think Pepe versus Norwich, Pepe versus Leicester, Pepe versus United even will be really fun to watch, as teams kind of give him space to run into.
Yeah, we handled him really well. And there's a moment on the inside Anfield where you see kind of how Van Dijk is able to negate anyone's pace over a short distance, because he just eats up the distance between the two of them and goes in for a crunching slide tackle and clears it out. And that just summed up the entire afternoon, I feel, for their attack, that they're fast and they had a plan. And no matter what their plan was, we have Virgil van Dijk and he says nay. And that was the only one of our defenders that really gave anybody a worry and possibly would have enabled them to score, even though they did score a goal, was Adrian. He had a bit of a brain fart on one where Van Dijk was clearly waving him off. He kept coming. And I was watching some people, and they were saying, like, oh, he's too indecisive. That was a really indecisive play. And I was like, no, the problem is that he was way too decisive and didn't listen to his defender. And that's why we ended up with an empty net. But, I mean, other than that, we had it controlled. And you could see in the second half, I think that's what changed a little bit, was that we weren't as reliant on Virgil and Matip to play the line-breaking passes. Our midfield stepped up, and we started playing through the middle a little bit more. We stopped immediately looking for Trent and Andy just for crosses, and that's when we created the penalty situation, and it led to a lot more scoring chances. So I'm glad we were able to mix up the attack, because that's something that we've said that we've needed to do in hours of need. And we can turn our attention to one of the better attackers, the best dribbler in the world, one of the most progressive dribbling center backs in the world, and that is Joel Matip. Will, how great is Joel Matip? Let's just start with that.
Can I give a hot take?
Yes.
He's better than Van Dijk right now.
Ooh.
I think he's better. He's playing better than Van Dijk right now. As much as I want Gomez to be the one on the pitch and be the one getting this experience and be the one getting these minutes, and I want to see that partnership with him and Van Dijk that was so successful early last season. You can't bench. Sorry, Joseph. You can't bench Joel Matip right now. You cannot. He is maybe one of our most on form players right now, and he is just kind of unplayable. You see it in the play where Aubameyang kind of got through and had a look at goal, and then you see just Joel the Flash Matip come flying from out of the frame and just take the ball right off his foot as he goes to shoot. I don't know how long I felt like he's better than Van Dijk, but maybe it's just because people avoid Van Dijk. Maybe it's not fair to Virgil to say that Matip is better, because Matip is the one that's actually getting the ball and being under pressure, and Virgil arguably has better positioning than Matip, and that's why he doesn't have to defend as hard, But Matip is so good right now. Would start on any team in Europe, I believe.
I agree completely, and we wouldn't have won the Champions League without him. He's been that good for that long, and the relationship he has with Van Dijk, and kind of the understanding that he has that when Trent goes forward, it's up to him to cover that side, and he most of the time he does it unless he gets outnumbered. So he's involved so much, whether it's covering, whether it's bringing the ball out of the back, whether it's splitting passes. I mean, he just does everything. And now we see him score again and do a very awkward looking celebration. It was like the double fist pump air hump. Then maybe he was as surprised as most people that he scored on the header and not Van Dijk. But I was just so happy to see him score, and it's just he's really earned it. And like you said, it's kind of hard to argue against that he's been better than Van Dijk recently, I guess. But also, there were a lot of times towards the end of last season where Van Dijk was good, but Matip was the superior player for specific games. So his importance can't be understated, and it kind of still feels like he's underrated, but he's getting the attention he deserves. And I mean, there's talk today about an extension for him coming up. I think that would be more than warranted. And don't forget, we got him on a free. Like, that's insane.
I mean,
And I
he's a
know it took
$40 to $50 million player right now, I believe.
absolutely, yeah, he would, like you said, he'd walk into any team, and any team would be lucky to have him. And we're lucky to have him playing next to Virgil. I like their combination of Virgil's hair and Matip's mustache. I mean, it's just a lot of good stuff going
Right,
on back
the
there.
mustache. You know what's interesting, and not to, I kind of want to clarify. Van Dijk has not been bad at all.
Right.
And I actually think that Matip would not be as good as he has been if it were not for Virgil. Like if Virgil's not there and it's like Matip and Gomez or Matip and Lord, if it's Matip and Lovren, then those kind of plays don't happen. But I do think that maybe Virgil's calmness at the back and his direction, his leadership has led to Matip maybe playing a little bit better than him. I would pick Virgil over Matip 10 days out of 10. He's the first name on the team sheet easily. But I think that in actual open play, Matip has been better recently.
Absolutely. And you see, like, those are the kind of partnerships that we haven't had in a very long time. But when you see the great teams, they have those center back pairings that bring out the best in each other. And it's surprising because they're so similar in what they want to do when they're on the ball, and kind of how long they are, and it's a little different in how they actually defend. But they're really good, not quite foils of each other, but they're like a right hand and a left hand. They really complement each other really well, and enable us to kind of do what we've been doing defensively, and enable our fullbacks to go forward and just have those two and Fabinho back really holding down the center. I mean, it's been so long before these past since Virgil signed that we've had a solid defense, and now we've got two center backs that are just imperious. And like you said, it's a shame that Joe Gomez is fit but not able to play. But how could anyone really argue that Matip doesn't deserve to be in the starting lineup until he gets injured, if that happens? I mean, he's just a lock in the lineup, and we love him.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sucks for Gomez, but you'll get your chance again. Inevitably, he'll get to play again. He'll get a run in the team, but right now it's Matip time.
Agreed, and it might be Gomez's time this weekend. I guess we can turn ahead and look at the big matchup with Burnley. There has been some reports coming out recently. I think Paul Joyce was talking about it, that it's going to be time to rotate. Klopp's going to start using his squad a little bit more because there's been a lot of exertion early in the season, and like you mentioned earlier, that Salah is not doing much tracking back. That puts a lot of stress on Trent Alexander-Arnold, who is covering every blade of grass from like the midfield to the entire right touchline. So he's got to be tired. So that could be an opportunity for Gomez to come in. And I know we've talked about it before, but would you be all right with Gomez getting minutes out at right back, or do you think that's hurting him in the long run, or do you want to see him come in if we're going to rotate for Matip, like we just talked about?
I think Trent had he was one of the few players that actually had an off season, and has settled pretty well. He hasn't been excellent defensively, but his offense has picked up right where he left off. And Burnley is a team where we're going to have a lot of possession. I would just as soon just play Trent, and maybe if you want to do Gomez at center back, you can, but there's really no reason not to play Matip and Virgil. I think you'll see that they don't really need rotating as much as the forwards do. I think we'll see Origi. I think we may see Ox again in some capacity. I was kind of surprised to not see him at the weekend, and in a more prominent. It was kind of up to him and Genie, I thought, and I mean Genie
Hmm.
did fine, but I was kind of surprised it wasn't Ox, especially after his new contract. I think you see Ox again and Divock in some fashion. I don't really. Klopp hesitates to. He seems to favor rotating Mane more than rotating Salah. Like if Salah's available, he's usually on the pitch, and so I
Hmm.
don't really see Mo getting sat right now. So I think you could see maybe Mane, Divock, Salah. I think you could see maybe Ox wide left with Bobby and Salah. We'll see. It'll be something weird probably that we won't expect, but we may also see Milner come in at somewhere and hold it up. So it'll be fun to see the rotation. It's nice after moaning about squad depth forever. It's nice to actually have options at the same time.
It really is, and I mean, like you said, Mane does tend to get rotated, and he did have the shortest preseason out of anybody, so that could very well be a feature of why he doesn't start. This could be a match tailor made for Divock on the left, just because I feel like Bobby is absolutely essential for playing against a team like Burnley, who are looking to sit deep, looking to play two banks of four. And he can be one of those players that can sneak in between their banks or run deep or pull someone out of position just by catching them off guard for that split second and create that opening for us. It also seems like something that would be really good for Ox. Like you said, I mean, we saw in the first half against Arsenal a little bit that those splitting passes are not necessarily the forte of that midfield combination of Gini, Hendo, and Fabinho. And we will probably need someone like that to unlock this sturdy defense because crosses might not be as effective against the behemoths that make up the Burnley back line. There's these gargantuan people that are looking to hip check some people out of the way, and our forward line is not exactly the tallest. So that those would be where I can see the rotation coming in. But we mentioned him briefly. But are you worried at all about Ashley Barnes? Does this seem like a match where he nips on the end of a long ball that bounces off of someone's butt and he volleys it at upper 90 for some reason?
Well, we're giving up more goals per game than we have in recent memory right now, and so I would not be shocked if we conceded. But I'm not worried about this game at all. Barnes is a good player. He's caused us trouble in the past. He causes a lot of teams around the league trouble, but especially if it's Matip and Virgil, it's not going to happen. I don't think Burnley will have enough of the ball to really attack very much. I think they will have seen that Arsenal had minor success in sitting deep, and Burnley is a team that is much better equipped at doing that. And I think this game will maybe play out a lot like the last one did, where you see teams sit deep. And that may be the new standard for us. Hopefully not, because that sucks. But I think it could very well happen.
It seems very likely. I mean, we've previewed Burnley matches before on the pod for the past couple years, and I don't think there's really anything different to say about playing them. We know what to expect. We know what they're going to do. Everyone knows what they're going to do. I don't think they've changed styles since they were in the 60s. So it's going to be what it is. It's going to be tough, especially away at Turf Moor. But I'm expecting us to be good enough to break them down. And weirdly, there is a rotation option on the bench that we haven't talked about and we all like. And we know for a fact that he won't start and he probably won't play. And that is Xherdan Shaqiri. So, Will, what do you think is going on with him and that whole situation? Do you think there's an outside chance that he could potentially move on before the window closes?
Who?
Xherdan Shaqiri.
Who?
Power
Oh,
Q.
right. Oh, I forgot we have Greggy's on the team. No,
Yeah.
I don't think he'll move on. I think that if there was any intention of letting him go, that Klopp would have brought in somebody else to fill that role. I think Shaqiri is the reason that we didn't keep someone like Harry Wilson. Just having him around and having him available is enough cover. I think that Klopp just kind of sees him as a backup, and obviously, like with the team spirit as like it is, you don't really hear many complaints. He's probably okay with that. I mean, he just got a Champions League medal; he can't complain too much. But you know, I Shaqiri, except for his time at Stoke, has been a player. Like he was at Bayern for a little while, and he played some, probably a lot like he's playing here. I could see him being content to stay, because he's older. You kind of know what you're going to get with him, and he could go to a Southampton or a Burnley or something like that and play if he wanted to stay in the league. But why would you? I mean, why? Why leave Liverpool right now? That just seems dumb to me, and so I can't really see it. And
That,
before we post this podcast, he will have left probably, but I don't see it right now.
yeah, I don't think there's any rumors technically leaving about or technically circulating about him leaving. I know there was kind of an interview that did the rounds that said like he might be looking for more playing time and is maybe a bit surprised about his reduced role. And I have to admit, I am too. I mean, I was surprised to see, well, surprised but not surprised at all to see Adam Lallana come on over him against Arsenal when the game was already gone. And this match last year was such a good showing for Shaqiri away at Burnley in the wind and the rain and the cold, and he came on and changed the match and scored that beautiful counter-attacking goal to seal it, to make it 3-1 after that ridiculous Alisson save. So it just kind of making me think full circle, like what's happened? Are we ever going to see him again? Is it just that there's no jerseys in the new style that fit him, and we just can't send him out there for rules and regulations reasons? Like the half and half socks, just they're too tight on one half of the stitching, so they just don't fit over his calves and he can't play. But I'm really hoping to see him in some regard this weekend, just because he hasn't played at all this season, and I miss him. He's our power cube. We deserve to see the cube.
He's also really fun to watch. Like you can tell he has like a joy when playing, and I think that unfortunately for him, he's just in a Liverpool team that is firing on all cylinders in every position that he plays right now. I Going back to Lallana, our favorite character. I mean, favorite player. He's kind of a character. He just kind of. I was not surprised to see him get on in some capacity, and the game was won. We weren't going to lose. Just let him get some minutes. I don't really know what we're still doing with him, but as long as he's here, like I'm going to support him. It'll be fine. I just don't expect anything from him. It's kind of like I don't expect much from Shaqiri either. Just like it's fine. It is what it is.
Yeah, and it's very much down the list of priorities for our midfield to shoot, and that could be why Shaqiri is not finding more time in the midfield, because he does like to have a sight at goal, and maybe there's some tactical instructions that his instinct is not to follow just because he wants goals. But yeah, who knows? But hopefully we see him because he is a modern marvel. Now, before we get into the score prediction for this Burnley match, we need to take some time to do something for kits and giggles. So let's take a look at the Burnley kits, which much like their style of play, I don't think has changed since the 60s. Will, what do you make of these? Do you like them? Are they good? Are they bad? Ugly?
They're fine. I mean, I'm not a fan of the collar situation that they have going on, but it's kind of whatever. I don't really pay too much attention to Burnley kits necessarily. I don't love the claret and blue, or like the West Ham, the Burnley, the 50 Villa, 50 other
Villa.
English teams. That's super weird to me. I hate that those two colors put together. And so I'm just, because of personal preference and not really anything to do with design, it's a good kit.
I tend to agree, and like you said, like I don't know what it is about that color scheme, but I have more of a problem with multiple teams having it than, say, like having multiple red teams or multiple blue teams, of which there are plenty. But like I think even Scunthorpe has this color scheme, and it's just such a weird combination of colors. And maybe there's some significance that we have missed out on being Americans as to why claret and blue is a thing. Maybe it showed up better on black and white TVs or something, but it's just a weird mix of colors that you never see anywhere else. Like I've never seen these colors together in any other walk of life. And that's why I don't really like it. I think it's a meh kit because I will say I do kind of like their away kit, the blue like 90s to-go cup pattern almost.
Yeah, that's it.
It's kind of like that, but it's blue. So I'll give them a meh kit just because the away kit redeems it a little bit. But I mean, they've been doing the same thing with the home kit for years. And I mean, they're Umbro, which is a subsidiary of Nike still, I think. So it still kind of looks like the other Nike template kits. So not really much going on there. No real feelings either way, but I don't like their team. Don't like what they're about. I don't like that I don't have Ashley Barnes as fantasy points on my team. So, there's a lot of things not to like about Burnley. So let's wrap it up with a big score prediction. Will, are you feeling confident about a win, a draw, a mega win, turbo win?
Turbo win, except not turbo in speed. 3-0, we don't score until the second half. And we finally keep a clean sheet.
That seems like... that seems like the review of every match that Burnley has ever played, that it's 0-0 going into halftime, and then it opens up as people get tired. And I absolutely agree that that's what's going to happen. I think it'll be a 2-1 victory. I think it will be very frustrating, and that's exactly what they want it to be. They want it to be a very annoying match. I don't think you can stop Ashley Barnes. He'll score. It'll be a very weird goal. It'll be a volley. One of my friends pointed out that I think 90% of his goals are a volley of some sort. And when you go back and look, it's absolutely true. He is ridiculously good at volleys. He scored the one against Wolves this weekend. It's just a weird anomaly. And I fully expect it to happen against us, but I also expect us to score enough goals to beat them. So looking forward to having 12 points, being top of the table. We're getting some very generous results from the rest of the league. Are you feeling confident
Tottenham
with all these teams dropping points, or are you feeling weird?
I really thought they would come out better than they have, and they are just not doing it for me right now. City we'll drop points at some point, so City will catch up eventually. But it is nice to kind of be clear at the moment, and probably clear going into the international break.
It feels great, and it feels as good as Secret Agent Harry Wilson scoring an absolute worldie. I know he's on your love list, and I can't even imagine the noises you made when you saw that goal.
I'm a Bournemouth fan this season as well. Nothing to do with Harry Wilson, of course, but Bournemouth fan right now. And wow, what a goal! What a result didn't really change, unfortunately, but the goal was excellent, and I love a good free kick goal like that. He couldn't it's literally could not have been more perfect. It was inch perfect. It's a wonderful goal.
It really couldn't have. And every time you watch the replay, you notice another fun reaction from someone in the video. It's kind of like thousands of people making that Marco Grujic face when Henderson scored that goal against Chelsea, just kind of all over the place. I think Josh King puts his hands on his head like, what have you just done? And this kid behind the goal is freaking out. It's great. Just everyone listening, go watch it right now just to make yourself feel better. And while you're doing that, after that video's over, tweet at us at YNTA Podcast, your prediction for this match, your thoughts on the start to the season, your thoughts on Joel Matip's mustache. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to get a review from you on the podcast service of your choice. And we'd love for you to just have a great time in whatever you're doing. So that'll do it for us this week. Will, thanks for coming back. We've missed you.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody missed everybody. We don't miss Andrew. We've made that very clear
does
on
Zach
all
still
of these
do this
episodes.
podcast?
That it
Does
has
Zach
just
still do
been
this?
Will. No, Zach is feeding into my bit that he does not show up very
Right,
often
okay.
by not showing up very often. So he's bringing my prophecy to life. And Joseph, who knows what he's doing? That guy, who knows?